Hey everyone, it's Ben. Finally doing the follow-up to my original video, which was regarding the best remakes, or my opinion of what are the best remakes that have been made in the horror genre. This one is featuring the movies that I'm not a fan of at all, or I am indifferent to. Like, there's things I like, things I don't like. My list is only about 6 movies, very short list. But I'm going to give a breakdown of each film, say why I don't like it, or what I like about it and what I don't like about it. And then I'm going to talk about some rumors about some of the remakes that are coming up in the next couple of years. So let's get started. So the first film is my least favorite remake and my least favorite movie ever made. It was a pointless movie to remake. It was pointless to remake this film. The original Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, starring the legendary Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh, is one of the best films ever made, in my opinion. It's been my top 3 of favorite films ever made. The Psycho series, I love Psycho 2, 3, and 4 as well. But when I heard that Gus Van Sant was remaking Psycho, and this was in the late 90s, this was after Scream had come out, and there was all this talk about, trying to update. This is when the remakes kind of started. Everybody thinks it was with Chainsaw Massacre in 2003, but in 98, after Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer had been huge, they were trying to revamp a lot of old horror films to see if they could get a Scream audience to connect with them. So they decided to start with one of the greatest films ever made, which was Psycho, originally made in 1960. The casting of the remake of Psycho is just ridiculous. Who they got to play. Anne Hesh to play Janet Leigh. Janet Leigh's character of Marion Crane is she's forgettable. She's just completely pointless in the film. Nothing memorable about the way she does the character or her performance. Is just, there's nothing. When the shower scene occurs and when she's killed, it's like you don't feel the loss that you felt in the original Psycho. You don't connect with her as Marion Crane at all. Vince Vaughn is a mess in this film, and I can't fault this completely on the actor. This obviously had to come somewhat from Gus Van Sant's direction of the film. But Vince Vaughn is a disgrace as Norman Bates. No one can play Norman Bates like Anthony Perkins, and to think that they even tried to attempt this. Obviously Vince Vaughn plays him much differently. He plays him kind of like a bumbling backwoods oaf kind of. He's just a goof in this film. There's nothing menacing about him. There's nothing interesting about him. He plays him just like for laughs almost. Nothing original brought to the table at all. Julianne Moore is almost as bad as Vince Vaughn. She almost acts like she's got cue cards behind the camera reading her lines. She's just completely horrible in the role of Lila. Just complete waste of time. And I have so much respect for Julianne Moore. I'm surprised she even did this movie. The only saving grace, I'd say, from the film is William H. Macy as Arbogast. He's not nearly as good as Martin Balsam was in the original, but at least he brings a little bit of class to the role and makes it a little bit different by not trying to seem so generic. He does bring a little bit of class to that role. And finally, Viggo Mortensen as Sam is just an idiot. He's just horrible, and I love Viggo Mortensen, but his portrayal of Sam is just terrible. And again, this has to come back to Gus Van Sant, whom I lost so much respect for. I wasn't really a huge fan of Gus Van Sant prior to this. I liked Good Will Hunting, but wasn't a big fan of some of his earlier works, like My Own Private Idaho. But there was no reason for him to remake this film. It was perfect the way it was. There's nothing interesting about it, and the reason why I initially even went to see it was because the rumor was that the film would be identical to the original Psycho up until the shower scene. And then after the shower scene, it was going to go in a different direction. So I'm like, hey, that's kind of interesting. Let's see what this goes. Nothing happened. He added some things to it, like when Norman spies on Marion changing in cabin 1 in the motel parlor. Now he masturbates in the remake, and it's like, it cheapens the character. He didn't need to put that in there. It just makes the character, there's nothing. It was creepier in the original when Anthony Perkins as Norman was just watching her. To add the masturbation was just a cheap little gimmick to make it more risque or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's like the other thing I heard about is that, and this was mentioned in a deleted scene from the Psycho Legacy documentary that came out last year, was that Gus Van Sant timed the actors so that their cues and the way they delivered their lines was down to the second in terms of how the original cast delivered their lines. So these actors were not allowed to act at all. They were just force-fed this stuff. They were just supposed to spew it out fast, get stuff out there and get these lines out there and bring nothing to their characters. And it shows. It really shows. I mean, this would be a good experiment, but it's a waste of film. It's a waste of a movie. And I hate this film completely 100%. You couldn't pay me to watch it again. They ruined the Psycho House. They changed it and made it this ghastly looking cabin / mansion which has no menace to it at all. The original Psycho House is iconic. It's just a horrible film, and I'm glad that more people are appreciating the original Psycho now, because back then a lot of people didn't know about Psycho. It was in black and white. People knew who it was, what the film was and who made it. But I think what they tried to do was to bring this to a 90s audience, and it just didn't work. And I was glad it didn't work, because it proved that you can't just remake a film and put it out to an audience and think that they're just going to lap it up. It was a bad choice. It was a bad decision to remake it, and I'm glad that it didn't work. And they haven't tried to remake it again. God, please don't try to remake this film again. Leave it alone. So I think I've carried on enough about this one.